very welcome. Great to see such a great turnout for what is, I think, the first ever Michael Collins 22 Society in night in Letterkenny. I would like to give a particularly welcome to Jim Nevin from the Collins 22 Society. Jim has done a huge amount of work in organising tonight's event, and he's given us all the good advice and all the expertise that comes from many years of running these events. I would like to thank the local organising committee as well: Paddy Gilday, Doreen Sheridan, Kennedy, Johnny McCollum, Ali Moore, Frank O'Donnell, John Higgery, and also thanks to Stephen McCollum, who is filming tonight's events for us. I'd like to thank the local press and Highland Radio for their help in publicising this event and for their presence here tonight also. I'd like to thank Tootie and Cian O'Donnell, very talented brother and sister, for providing the music there. They're from a very talented... from a very musical family, except for their Andy Rushing. I would like to give a particularly special welcome to Joan Murphy and Mary Sabora, who are both grandnieces of Michael Collins. Mary is up here. Mary is here tonight all the way from Clonakilty, and Joan Murphy is a long-time resident of Letterkenny, and we're delighted to have them both here tonight. Joan will be speaking to you later on. I think all that really remains for me to do is to introduce you to our chairman for the night, a Letterkenny native, now resides in County Meath, and he's been General Secretary of Fine Gael since 1999, an avid Donegal GAA supporter, never misses a game. When I mentioned NA 21 and Collins 22, he said it was a tight game. But he's your chairman for the night, and if we get through the night without some mention of Donegal GAA, it'll be a wee bit of a miracle. But he has a bit of leeway because Michael Collins and Sam Maguire were great colleagues and great friends, so he might manage to squeeze a bit of football in somewhere. Tom Curran.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. It's very heartening to see the number of people here tonight. And it's very heartening for those that founded the Collins 22 Society to see, coming to Letterkenny to see such a big crowd. And it's a tribute to those that organised the event. And I think I was asked about 4 months ago, down at some meeting or another, somebody sidled up to me and says, "Tom, would you like to go back to Letterkenny one of the evenings? I have something for you to do." And he says, "It's not at all political, you're not to do anything like that." And I says, "Grand, no bother, I'll do it." And then I discovered what it was. But as I see this evening, and what the Collins 22 Society is about, is to try and, for us now in the 21st century, to understand our history, to understand what role Michael Collins and the people of that generation play in shaping Ireland. And for us now, given all our difficulties and all the challenges that we face ahead, to try and see what inspiration can we take from Collins the man, Collins the politician, Collins the Minister for Finance, Collins the man who was involved in Irish culture, and Collins the writer. And what really impressed me about the lineup of speakers, apart from the fact that we were going to have a grandniece on the platform of Michael Collins, a man who, when an educated in Letterkenny in national school, secondary school, we didn't learn that much about Michael Collins. I've come now in later life to have a full appreciation of all that was involved at that time. And in some ways, what was decided at the treaty and decisions taken and sides taken and so on, in some ways you see history repeating itself in Northern Ireland. And that's what's brilliant, apart from Joan being here, is we have a member of the Northern Ireland Assembly from a very different tradition here. And it shows how we need all to work together and how, from history, we can learn valuable lessons, and it gives us a greater understanding of very different cultures, different traditions. And again, just to say, it is a political meeting, not a party political meeting, but it is a political meeting. Because politics is what makes the difference, and politics is about public service. And we're here tonight to hear about a man who epitomised, in my view, public service in the right way. Now, we have a long list of speakers. I'm told they all won't be too long. And it's about somebody, when we were outside earlier, we want to hear it, warts and all. It's not about propaganda. It's about truth. And it's about having a greater realization. If we understand where we have come from and the sacrifices people have made, we have a better chance in terms of charting our choppy water that lies ahead. So the first person I want to introduce is somebody that has done tremendous work with the Collins 22 Society. When they started, and I remember when they started, people thought they were mad. And we all know about bail and law and all of that sort of stuff. But this was something different. And Gerry O'Connell is here, who's a Dublin-based solicitor. And we were to travel up together this evening, but he got delayed because, like all good solicitors, he had to appear in the High Court today on behalf of a client. I didn't have time to ask him whether he was successful or not, and he wouldn't tell me anyway. But Gerry has been one of the founders. He's one of the great modern exponents of Michael Collins. He's somebody that practices politics as well as practicing law. He is somebody that believes in the idealism of Michael Collins. He's a Tipperary man. He doesn't know much about football, but he knows plenty about other things. And I just want you now, without much ado, and to introduce Gerry O'Connell to you. Thank you very much.
Tarastáis, Coheirach, Chapta Dali, Bowden, Chinol, Chushkartna Hearden, a Cardi Illy, Dogus, a Cardi Vale. It's Munur Nor Dumsa, Mar Oraj, a Hort's doing our son and Quillanach, Mihala Quillan, August, our son and Cuman, Mihala Quillan. It's a great honour for me to be in Donegal tonight, ladies and gentlemen. As I was passing through the four courts, I think the best way to describe it is it was more of a scoreless draw than a winner or defeat for anyone this evening. But I can see the bullet holes in the pillars which hold that building up. I can see the shell marks on the edifice of the four courts grinning down on the North Quays in Dublin City. As you walk through the central courtyard of that great building where justice in this republic is administered, and the clatter of heels across the long stone corridor through the four courts, you're immediately brought back to that day in 1922 when the four courts were shelled and the first shots of the Irish Civil War were fought. Comrade against comrade, former friend against former friend, separated by a body of water across from Ireland's four courts in June 1922. The holes on the pillars of the four courts are still there as witness and testament to that day. So when we talk about what we do in our current lives, ladies and gentlemen, I think the time of 1922, 1919 and 1921 and figures like Michael Collins resonate and intertwine in our lives on an everyday basis. And sometimes we don't seem to realise it. The most recent Gael skull that was opened in this country is Gaelscoil Mihály Chaileán in Clonakilty, named after Michael Collins. On the 16th of October of this year, just 3 weeks ago, the front page photograph on the Cork Examiner newspaper was a woman kneeling down at prayer at Michael Collins' grave in Glasnevin Cemetery. Collins' legacy, his influence and his life story, I believe, is all pervasive and still amongst us. And that's why we are having nights like tonight, and by you all coming here and prepared to listen about our great patriot is in itself a manifestation of how Collins still is relevant in Irish life. I'll be very brief. There's far more distinguished speakers than me going to speak to you tonight. I'm just going to tell you a little story about this society. It was founded in 2002 at the site of the 1848 rebellion on a hillside near Ballingarry in South Tipperary. It sounds very evocative and romantic, but in the parish of Ballingarry, near where I'm from, we have one great claim to fame. It was the first place where the green, white and gold tricolour was flown before the 1848 Young Ireland Rebellion. And a group of us got together in the winter of 2002, and it was just coming up to the anniversary of the signing of the Anglo-Irish Treaty back in 1921. And the question was posed, how is it that Michael Collins appears to have been airbrushed out of Irish life? How is it that an entire generation, maybe even 2 generations of people, have gone through formal education in this republic without knowing the Michael Collins story? And how is it it takes a Hollywood film to bring Michael Collins back into the centrality of Irish life? And that's where we started from. We started as an ordinary group of people, farmers and teachers and carpenters and students and housewives and whatever, and got together and decided to found a society. And we got involved with the Collins family. We set up a website, generalmichaelcollins.com, and as a short-term aim, we decided we'd try and make sure that it would be a central receptacle for all online material on Michael Collins. So the stuff started to come in. Stuff like receipts for the Irish National Loan. The Irish National Loan in 1920, 1921 was when the ordinary 5/8 of the country put their hands in their pockets and financed the Dáil government that Michael Collins was Minister for Finance for. So we saw people sending in receipts and dockets signed by Michael Collins, propaganda pictures of Michael Collins giving speeches in places like Clonmel and Carrick-on-Shore for the Irish National Loan, and gradually it grew and grew. And we travelled to different parts of the country, and all we asked for is that people will take a little bit away from the memory of Collins leaving and may be inspired to ask more questions, to tell your children about him, tell your grandchildren about him. When your child comes to you and say they have an essay to do in school, maybe they might consider talking about Michael Collins. You know, open up Michael Collins and open up the memory of Collins to your lives. That's essentially the practical mission statement of our society. And the 3 things I really want to speak about tonight, apart from that by way of background, is firstly, we want to perpetuate the name of Michael Collins, because we believe he's the most significant figure in 20th century Irish history, and the man who made democracy possible in Ireland. Those are 2 very bold statements. But in our view, in terms of the contribution to Irish political life in the 20th century, General Michael Collins has no equal in terms of what he achieved. And we feel his name should be perpetuated for that reason and that reason alone. We also feel that there is always a danger that we could revert back to the bad old days, when in 1965, for example, the Irish government published facts on the Irish state, and there was no mention of Michael Collins, good, bad or indifferent, in that official government publication. And the fear is that we would have had back in 2002, and I think it's now thankfully become unfounded, is that Collins' name will be forgotten once more. So we seek to perpetuate his name by the very fact that there are 200, 250 people gathered in a hotel room tonight here in Letterkenny for one reason and one reason only, to hear about Michael Collins. And that in itself perpetuates his name. The second reason we founded the society is we wanted to honour his ultimate sacrifice. War is a dirty business. The Irish revolutionary period is strewn with episodes which are no fairy tale. But whatever you slice, dice or boil Béal na Blá down to, essentially it was a man making the ultimate sacrifice in pursuit of defending a settlement that was approved by the ballot box in 1922. And we want to honour that ultimate sacrifice, and at 11 o'clock every Saturday, members of our society maintain General Collins's grave at Glasnevin Cemetery. It's one of the core things that we do, and something we're very proud of, and everything that we raise from the society that we don't need in terms of costs goes into putting fresh flowers on Collins's grave at 11 o'clock every Saturday, 52 weeks a year, every day, every single Saturday of the year. And it's amazing when you see Glasnevin Cemetery, which is, I suppose, Ireland's national graveyard, gets more postal orders, gets more floral requests from all over the world for one grave and one grave only in that cemetery, and that's General Collins's grave. So we have people who are members of our society who have been tending Collins's grave since the 1940s, who would have been sons of members of the squad, of his Dublin squad, his key activists in the War of Independence. And that continuum continues with the work of our society. But finally, and I'll leave you with this point, we believe the most important thing that you can try and do with an organisation like the Collins 22 Society is that you can inspire people to aspire to his life principles. Because I believe, as a young person with an interest, a passing interest in politics, and an interest, I suppose, in the law and the workings of the law, that everything of Collins's life is an example to the new generation of Irish people of how to conduct oneself. His life principles were marked by courage. Courage is the one thing perhaps you think of more so than anything else when you talk about Collins. Courage, not just physical courage, but mental courage, psychological courage, the courage of one's convictions, the courage to fight a very divisive political contest and see it out to the end. He also had marvellous, marvellous organisational skills and administrative ability. And the fact that the Irish national loan, some speakers might refer to it later, what actually got off the ground. I suppose you could say it was the original bailout, or the original bailout programme. It was when the ordinary people gathering in 4 crossroads right across the country bailed out the Dáil government and made sure that revolutionary government could exist and operate in Ireland in 1919 and 1920. And that administrative skill, that key organisational nous that he brought to all the different hats that he wore, is something that we should try and aspire to in terms, and it's a challenge I would lay down to the political and civic leaders of this country, that in bad times when people lived in the fear of the gun in Irish life in 1919, 1920, 1921, there were people of the administrative ability of General Collins to get this country up off its knees and moving, and we need to see that happen again. Also, he was a man with a tremendous grasp, I believe, of an empathy for a society, for people on the margins of society, for the elderly and for the young. 2 groups in society I believe Collins cherished dearly. And we know relatively little in answer to that key question of what would have happened had he survived the Bailna ambush and had he continued on. He was Commander-in-Chief of the National Army at that point. Probably would have very soon been chairman of the provisional government. There was a northern strategy, military strategy, sort of coming to an end at that stage as well. Who knows what he would have achieved? But we have small little clues. The Path to Freedom, the posthumously published collection of short essays which set out what Collins's vision would have been for Ireland. And it was a progressive vision. It was a can-do vision. It was about channeling natural resources, fair division of assets and resources for people, building a real republic, renewing old Gaelic culture and reviving not just language for language's sake, but reviving that great spirit of Gaelic civilization and engendering it into the 1920s with an Irish people, with a new government in Dublin, putting its best foot forward in every single sector. That's what I think the Collins message and the Collins vision would have been. And I think we should always try and aspire to those principles of courage, of massively high standards in public office, and also of progressive thought in society. We are campaigning for the erection of his statue, and that's my final message to you. There's no statue to General Collins, full, proper statue in the city of Dublin. His bust is in Merrion Square. There's a number of different small memorials throughout the city, but there is no statue. I think that's ludicrous. I think that's something that should change. I don't think the Americans would stand for that with George Washington. I don't think the French would stand for it. I don't think there's any race in Europe that would stand for it. And I do take people's views that, you know, there were two sides to the great conflict in the 1920s. And the Civil War was a total disaster for the new Irish state. And it engendered some of the most negative and poisonous elements that a new state just absolutely should have avoided at all costs. But we believe that there is a place, surely a place, for a statue to Michael Collins to be raised in Dublin before 2022 and the 100th anniversary of his death. And that is our ultimate goal as members of the Collins 22 Society. I thank you all for your attention, and I hope you enjoy the night. Thank you very much.